bringing you my second ever Kerbal Space Program tutorial, and this tutorial will be how to make a space satellite or space probe, however you want to put it. And this will basically be able to conduct scientific experiments in career mode, and also sort of if they ever add communication in the future, that can then easily be used to communicate with other satellites around the Kerbal solar system. So I'm actually going to make this in a career mode, just so then I can sort of show you the science, sort of making the science sort of and sending it back and actually being able to use it as a functioning satellite. So we're going to start off, and if you see my previous video, we made a basic rocket and got that into orbit. Now we're going to be using a rocket similar to that, because a space probe isn't exactly heavy. It's a bit heavier than what we used before, so we are going to actually have to add a little bit more thrust than what we did last time, but on the whole it'll be sort of the same principle. So the whole thing about a probe is that it's unmanned, so immediately we're not even going to look at the command pods or the cockpits or even the lander cans. We're immediately looking at, I've only unlocked these two probes, which is the probe, and no, I don't even know what that is, the Octo probe we'll call that, and the Stay Sputnik Mark 1. So I'm going to use this cube, the Octo probe, I'm calling it now, because even though it's a bit heavier than this, it's a bit more of a convenient shape. It's a bit large. I don't really like that. I mean, you can choose to use this if you want. It's up to you. It is lighter at the end of the day, so it's probably better than the Octo cube. But I quite like the Octo cube. I think it serves its purpose well. So we're going to start off with the Octo cube. Now this is going to be our sort of command module. Now the difference between a command module and a probe is the fact that obviously there isn't a Kerbal piloting it, so you don't have that sort of risk of losing one of these little guys. The only problem with that is that a probe obviously needs electricity to run it, and you always be draining electricity from your batteries, so you've got to make sure that you have ample supply to this probe. So we'll sort that out in a minute, but for the time being we've just got a probe. So this is, we're making a satellite to conduct scientific experiments. So for that I'm going to add this, the SC 9001 Science Junior. Just going to pop that underneath. Now this is a little science lab that can conduct little scientific experiments, and this is going to be my little scientific module here on the satellite. So I'm going to add 2 of the mystery goo containment units, and they basically allow you to oh sorry, I was going to sneeze then. And they basically allow you to sort of expose the atmosphere and whatnot to to a sample inside these capsules, and then you basically record the data that whatever happens to it. I'm also going to add a barometer, which, if I could put on symmetry mode, which needs no introduction, and a 2-hot thermometer, which is basically just a thermometer, and then a seismic accelerator, which detects seismic activity, so earthquakes and such. So once those 3 are on, and these are all you can add more instruments on if you wish, but those are the only 3 I have unlocked in career mode at this time. And we're also going to need a way of sending this information back. So we've got at the minute I've got a choice of 3. I'm pretty sure these are the only 3 you can use. So we've got the Communitron 16, which is a single antennae, which is the weakest of the 3. We have a Communicationtron 8888, which now this extends into a huge array, and this is probably, I don't know actually, no, this isn't going to be the one I'm using. And then the last one, which is the one I will use, is called the Comms DTS M1. Now this itself is a fully deployable, and it's quite good for sort of entering atmospheres, because it's very sort of it's very compact, and this will basically open up into its own solar array. Well, solar array, sorry. Not antennae, what's it called? A dish. It basically allows you to transmit, and you'll see when we get up there anyway. So yes, once we've made all this is our science module done. And just to finish this off, to make life easier for ourselves, we're going to make an action group. An action group allows you to set a certain amount of commands to a certain key. So if you answer this, for this, we're going to set this to the number 1 key on the keyboard. Now we're going to set for these to observe the mystery goo, log the pressure data, log seismic data, and log temperature, as well as observe the materials in the science bay. So basically, just by pressing the one key on a keyboard, we can conduct all of our science experiments in one go without having to individually click on them. It just makes life easier for ourselves. So that's that bit done. Now, we're still missing a few vital components from this space probe. So what we do need is some electricity. But we need somewhere to put this because we're getting a bit cramped on here. So what we're also going to add is just, because we're not going to need this isn't going to need its own rocket to get it into orbit. It's just going to need a little fuel tank and some boosters, just in case we want to make some minor adjustments while it's in orbit. So for that reason, I'm going to add the FLT200 fuel tank, which is the medium of the... Sorry, hang on, it's the... It's the second smallest of the medium tanks, if that makes sense. And then we're just going to add these Rockermax 2477 boosters to it. Just going to add 4 of them. And basically, what these little boosters, they pack a punch. They've each got 20 max power, so it's nearly equivalent. All of them nearly equivalents to one LV909 engine, but they're quite compact and they're good to use. So this fuel tank and these little boosters will allow us to make any changes in our orbital inclination while we're up there. So it just gives us a bit of breathing room and a bit of flexibility. So yes, like I said before, we'll need some way to power this probe. So for that reason, if we go to utility, first of all we're going to need some batteries, and you don't really need these huge Z400 batteries. For one, they look a bit silly, and 2, you don't need that much power. So we're just going to use these Z100. I'm going to have 2 of them. No, that's 4. Hang on. Right, 2. There we are. Yes, I have 2. One on the front, one on the back, and those basically are going to have perfectly enough power to be able to send all of this information back from the scientific experiments and to be able to power the main probe. Now, we're going to need some sort of way to generate this electricity, because obviously it doesn't just grow on trees. So we're going to have 2 of these photovoltaic panels. Now you can choose to have the ones that are exposed completely, or to have the ones that are in these protective boxes. Now, it doesn't really matter which, because to be honest, we're not really going to be getting fast enough that they're going to sort of fly off. So, but just to make sure, and just to, again, you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to put these in these protective cases, just to sort of make it a little bit better and more flexible, because that's what we want. Because we want a very sort of reusable probe. And so basically, now I think we're basically done. Don't think I've missed anything out here. No, I haven't. So yes, this is going to be our little space probe. Now, we need to have some way of getting this actually into orbit. Now, we're going to use pretty much exactly the same principle as before. Sorry about that. For some reason, my game just vanished. We're going to be using the same sort of rocket as we did before, and we're going to do that by having a snap decoupler. So this is basically going to be what the command pod was last time, but at this case it's a probe, and this is actually a fair bit heavier than the command pod, because the command pod on its own only weighed what, 0.8. I think this in itself, the science module, so that was 0.2. Yeah, it's not that much heavier, but it is a tad heavier. So we're going to need a bit more thrust than we did before. So we're still going to have the same sort of middle stage. So we're going to have these 2 FLT800 fuel tanks. And oh, actually, I've missed out one bit. I've missed out on something. We're going to add some advanced SAS. Now, I mentioned this in my previous video, but I didn't actually put it in. And basically, all probes and command pods have their own basic SAS, which is the autopilot, which I demonstrated in the last video while getting into orbit. And this module here is advanced SAS. Now, what this allows us to do, it has greater control over the aircraft, and also it has a reaction wheel, which basically allows it to turn easier. So I'm just going to have this in there just because it makes life so much easier, because it allows you to turn the aircraft rocket more easily, and sort of it doesn't cause any problems, and it uses very little electricity, so you might as well have it in there. We're going to use the same rocket as we did last video, the LVT-45, due to the gimbling, because we don't really, just for 15 and extra max power, there's, you might as well have the gimbling. It just makes life easier. And then we're going to have our 3 winglets like we did last time. Okay, so at this time we're going to have something a little bit different. Instead, last time we used these little RT10 solid fuel boosters, and I did actually show you these Rocket Max boosters. But this time, we are going to use these Rocket Max boosters, just to give us that extra little bit of pushing power that we need to get this into orbit. Okay, so if I pluck out these radial decouplers, put them there. Yep. Put them here. Just make sure that's on the right place. Yep. Okay. So now that's all ready to go. Next thing we need to do is make this stronger. This is probably strong enough as it is, but just, you know, we don't want to be having to come back here and do everything all over again, so, you know, we might as well get it right first time. So it's just add in these struts, which makes everything stable, and then we need some launch stability enhancers, just to position the... Oops. There we are. Just to position the rocket on the launch pad. Let's move that down just a little bit more. There we are. Right. Okay. Just checking if I missed anything. No, I think we're okay to go there. Okay, the final thing we need to do is obviously we need to check our staging to make sure everything's in order. So the first thing we want to do is ignite these 3 solid fuel boosters and detach these. So the first one, we're detaching these, but only in the second one are we actually igniting the solid fuel boosters. So we need to change that. So move that down. So now that's going to happen in the first time we press the spacebar. The next thing we want to do is for these to detach, which it does. And the next thing we want to, but actually, in fact, we want this rocket to fire up when these detach. So we're going to move that down into there. Next thing we want to do is just to detach that. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right, I think we're ready to go. So I'm just going to save this. Basic space probe. Mark 1. And this, you know, it doesn't always go right first time, so this should work, but I'm not promising anything. Right, so save and launch. Last video, the rocket design went quite well, so I'm hoping this will do the same. It's night time at the minute, guys, so I'm just going to fast forward time just to get us into daylight. There we are. Right. Okay, so we're going to do exactly the same what we did last time. We're going to press T to turn on the SAS, and this time we have the advanced SAS, so it should do a lot better. And we're going to hold the Shift key and throttle up to max throttle, even though these don't have throttle. We want to make sure that this engine's going to be on full throttle for when it ignites after these 3 Rocket Max boosters finish the job. So once everything's in order, we lift off in 3, 2, 1. There we are, straight off. You see these rocket boosters will actually burn for longer than the other boosters did because it has more fuel, and actually they burn more powerfully as well. So in actual fact, they make much better solid fuel boosters than the other ones did. But you know, we didn't really need that extra sort of additional fuel capacity when we were launching just a little command pod into space. Now that we're launching this probe, we need a bit more power. So these are going to burn out pretty soon. I'm wondering actually if we're going to have enough power with this little engine, but we'll see anyway. We can always go back and rejig things if necessary. So those ran out of fuel, so I detached them and ignited this rocket. So we are actually decreasing speed quite rapidly, and oh, I've missed the 10,000 meter mark, but not to worry. We can just sort of readjust it. It's only a rough guideline. It's not really, if you don't get it right, it's not the end of the world. But there we are. Now we're starting to increase speed, so I think we'll be fine. So yeah, this is kind of the boring part. I mean, once you've sort of learned how to get into an orbit, it sort of just becomes a bit routine, really. So you just, practice makes perfect, and as long as you just keep going at it, you'll eventually get a lot better at getting into your own orbits. Let's just check where we are. And we want our apoapsis to be, you know, for a stable space probe. What have I got my other ones at? 90, 85. Yeah, we're going to aim for about... I haven't got one at 80, so I'm going to aim for 80. Just, you know, give us that 10 kilometers above the atmosphere, just so then we've got a bit of breathing space then in case things go wrong, which they hopefully shouldn't do, but, you know, you always want to make sure. Unfortunately, I just switched the camera angle, but not to worry, I can still look here. 76, 78, X to take away the throttle, and there we are. So now, as of course you're all expert Kerbal space programists, you need to... Oh, sugar. Damn, I pressed the shift key by accident. Not to worry, it's only on 82, so that's fine. We now need to wait until we get to our apoapsis, to which we then need to burn prograde, which is the way our velocity is heading, and engage in a circular orbit. So let's wait. Let's just line that up now, and then let's fast forward time just a little bit. Nearly there now. Right, it's time to burn prograde. And if you remember, if we burn a little bit below, the apoapsis comes towards us, and if we burn a bit above, or below, sorry, the opposite way around, the apoapsis pushes away from us. And we want the apoapsis to sort of remain constant on us. Obviously, it's not that easy to do, so, you know, it's just a rough guide. So long as it's relatively on you, you should end up with a relatively circular orbit. Should seem to be doing okay on, actually. Check if I've got enough fuel. I'm running a bit low. Oh shit. Let's go there. There we are. So now on 81, 89, that's absolutely fine. So there we are. We are in, you know, this, I'll say that's a fairly circular orbit. It's not perfect, but you know what? Nothing ever is. It's on a good sort of equatorial incline. And that'll just about do us. So once you've hit, look at that. Just a tiny little bit of fuel left to spare. That was perfect. So what we're going to do now is we are going to press space to separate the space probe from the rocket stage. Again, very sad to see it go. And now we're left with our little space probe. So now we need to do one main thing, which, you know, as we can see, we've already lost some electrical charge. And this will be from operating this space probe. So now we want to open up our photovoltaic panels. Now you can do that by right-clicking on them and clicking Extend Panels. As you can see, these are solar panels. And so long as it's sunny, they will generate electricity for your space probe, which is very good considering we need electricity for this thing to work. And then if I just twist it round, there we go. So it's facing the sun, just to make it more efficient. So there we are, we've launched our space probe. And now, if we need to make any changes in its orbit, we can use these little Rockemax engines. God, I don't know why it's been a bit laggy today. Blimey. And now if we want to conduct some science experiments, which is, at the end of the day, what we had the satellite for, we can... Oh god, what is going on? Like 12 frames per second here. We can use the key action group that we made earlier. So if we just press the 1 key on a keyboard, so you can see, unfortunately we can't do the atmospheric pressure scan or the seismic scan because we're in the middle of space, so you can't. It has no atmosphere and we aren't on any ground, so you can't measure seismic activity. And you can see we've got a temperature scan. So because we don't have any Kerbals to sort of bring it back, we have to just transmit the data, and you do get less data, so less science than you would normally. But you know, you can keep repeating the experiments to kind of make up for that. So if we do transmit data for everything, click, 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 click. Oh, this is being really laggy. It's not normally this bad. So as you can see, the communication Tron we made we put on earlier opens up into a satellite disk and then transmits your data. Now, if you want to do this the quickest, make sure your solar panels are facing directly at the sun, because as you'll see, my electric charge just plummets while sending this data, because it costs a lot of it takes a lot of electricity to send data. So if we have our solar panels pointing directly at the sun, it'll hopefully charge it up as quickly as possible. So there we are, guys. That concludes my second tutorial on how to build a space probe. If you like my video, please press the like button and subscribe. I'm just quickly going to take a thumbnail. If this thing will actually turn around. I don't know why it's being so slow. Wow, this is being really laggy. Move over to one side slightly. There we are. Okay, guys, yeah, if you like the video, please press that like button and subscribe for more Kerbal Space Program videos. Cheers.